Alrighty, guys. So this is all about beginning your yoga journey. So my idea here today is I really want you guys to find out the authentic truth of what yoga means. So beyond that idea of what we've come to know of these postures, the meditation. So beyond that, so really creating this lifestyle that it was destined to be, to really keep ourselves aligned and fulfilled by our mundane livelihood. So everything we do in the mundane becomes sacred through this path of yoga. So just grab yourself a warm cuppa if you haven't already, a pen and some paper. Like I said, feel free to ask any questions, have a chat with each other, and let's really keep this like alive and what's the word I'm thinking of? We're talking with one another, it's an exchange. And if you want to let people know what you're up to, it'd be really helpful for me as well to get this word out so we can really build this community. Because if we can, oh, yes. Kellyanne, are you here, my love? All right, thank you. You haven't missed much. All right. So, yeah, so don't forget to tag me as well. I'd love to see what everyone's up to, and that way we can really keep the conversation going and intrigue others as well. Okay, so what we're going to learn today, so I really want to delve into the history. Where did yoga come from? Where did this idea originate? And the philosophy behind it as well. So I'm just going to touch very briefly today on the Eightfold Path. So if you've heard of it before, or you saw my video last Friday, Patanjali is this author who created the Yoga Sutras, which is probably the most condensed form of the yogic pathway that we can refer to, so that we know step by step what needs to be done in order to find that enlightenment, that bliss, that liberation. So I'm just going to explain to you what that is and how the asana, the pranayama, and the meditation that we're all familiar with falls into that. And all of that, what all of that is about creating a daily practice, which is a sadhana. And it's something that we can do moment to moment. So a sadhana is something that, you practice right now, as well as that daily practice where, you might do your meditation, or you might do your workout and things like that. So let's get started. Let's get straight into it. So what is yoga? So yoga, the word itself means to yoke, and it comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, which means yoke. It's about harnessing, employing, organizing, harmonizing. So it's really about bringing together our mind, our body, and our spirit. So whatever that means to you. So like I mentioned, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is probably the most comprehensive collection of ideas of yoga history that we have now. And the very first line of that says, Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. So that means yoga is to cease the fluctuations of the mind. So really, yoga can be considered as a study of the workings of the mind and how to bring about that or harmonize that mind-body connection. So the ancient yogis practiced in order to liberate themselves from suffering. So it's really about attaining this self-mastery, so that, the day-to-day things that we find ourselves troubled by become just part of the package. They're not things that really stop us or hold us back. They just become things that we use as growth, as tools to grow and expand. So really, if we look at it from the very Vedic, the beginnings of it, it is quite spiritual, and it's about joining the self, so the soul, which is called Jiv Atma, and to the highest self or source, which is Paramatma. So I'll be referring to a lot of Sanskrit today, and I'll get into that a little bit more, just a little bit about where Sanskrit comes from and what the science is behind that. So as I've mentioned already, so yoga does have very ancient roots, and it's been described in various forms that have stemmed from really ancient texts such as the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, if you've heard of that before, and of course the Yoga Sutras that I've been talking about. So the Vedas and the Upanishads were the same scriptures that gave rise to like Buddhism and Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism. So that's why a lot of the time these religions get cross-references. They are ultimately different, but they've all got this same foundation. And as you come to learn in a little bit as well, perhaps even a bit of a pagan, like paganism started from the Vedas as well. I haven't checked on that, but that is just something that I've deduced myself. So Oh, cool. I don't know how to use this. So this is the history, the complete history. So after beginning as sacred texts and chants and hymns and practices in the 1800s, so BC, that's where the Vedas were created. So I'm going to find myself. Oh, here we go. So if we look at the basic Vedic texts, the very beginning ones, they were created by this race called as the Aryans, and they were around that Pakistani, India area. And they created this collection of 4 main Vedas. So the Rig Veda, which is knowledge of the hymns and praise for recitation. So, so all of the hymns and the songs, the mantras that we hear now started with the Rig Veda. The Samaveda is knowledge of the melodies for chanting. So when we do chant, there's actually specific sounds that we need to make. And it's a very exact science. So as I was talking about before with Sanskrit, it's there's very much more to it than just saying a word. Each little syllable is meant to be said in a specific tone. So if you ever think about like Buddhists who are chanting, they've got that very monotone sort of a sound, and it might sort of fluctuate a little bit, go up and down, but there's only really about 3 or 4 tones that they chant between. And this came from this collection, the Samaveda, of knowing how to create these melodies. The next one is Yajurveda, which is knowledge of the sacrificial formulas. So this is for liturgy. So this is very much, like I said, the Vedas were created as spiritual text. And so they got given these Aryans were given the way they were given the way to perform these tasks and how to give service and how to teach people these hymns and these melodies. The Athartha Veda was the 4th one, and that's knowledge of the magic formulas. So this is very much about, how to do the rituals and what the rituals actually are for daily life. So these are procedures for daily life. Now, all of these Vedas, the way that they said how it was created was that they were actually just heard. So these ancient yogis, the very earliest yogis, were in deep meditation, and the sounds and the chants were just received. So whether that's something you want to believe or not, that's how it's said that it came about. And the way that these Vedas are written is very metaphoric. So if we were to translate them today, they would probably make no sense whatsoever, but they are very poetic, because I think that the depth of this is quite profound, that it's almost hard to put into words, or in the way that we are in society now, within these confines of, this is the formula to get to here, and this is this, and if you step 4 times to the left, that's how you're going to get enlightenment. Because really, at the end of the day, it's not like that. It's a whole a feeling. You really have to experience it to grasp it. And you can very much do that today by creating a sadhana, which we will get to. So it was all written in Sanskrit. So as I was saying, it's more than a language. So the sounds we make are an exact science made up of root sounds that come together like a recipe. So it gives a word of meaning by bringing them together. So, like your ma, la, ra. The sound has to be pronounced correctly too, to really induce the meaning. So a really great way to describe that is mala. So we probably have heard about mala, the string beads that we use for prayer. It's spelled M-A-L-A, but then if we say mala, M-A-L-A as well, but without this little line underneath one of the A's, it comes out as mala. And mala means poo. So you can imagine like the importance of pronouncing the words very, very correctly, because one thing can be very, very spiritual, and then the other thing can mean quite the opposite. So the Vedas were a very spiritual text whereby the gods and spirits of the natural world were worshipped. So including the elements and a godlike figure that resembles Zeus, really. So this thunderbolt yielding god that they said would come over the heavens and look after everything. And that's where I was saying, so very similar to pagan beliefs that we hear about today as well. So that idea of connection to nature. So really the Vedas, I think, have really created a strong foundation for many of the religions and philosophies that we know about today. So once we get past the Vedas, that very, very beginning, the next sort of bit came to the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And then we came to Tantra era. So Tantra yoga, beyond that sex that we know about, so tantric sex, it's really about this highest form of healing and enlightenment. So Tantra is about creating harmony between our mind, our body, our breath, our consciousness, and our community as a whole. And it's made up of a series of techniques for finding this connection. So it removes blockages, mental, physical, karmic, intellectual, and emotional, to really allow our inner light to shine forth. It's about integrating everything. So this sense of mastery over our daily life. It's about finding bliss in the mundane. So Tantra is really about creating this pathway, this yogic pathway, with having very meaningful actions, or we do things with sincerity. So nothing is taken for granted, and that's how we find that connection. So it's really about finding a joyful path within this life, rather than the idea that many other religions hold about finding salvation, for the afterlife. So it does have its dark sides as well, so where it's been linked to black magic, and it is very much that. So you can think about it, if you're putting so much focus and attention and meaning and sincerity into an action, you can use that sincerity for doing good as well as bad. So there are different levels of use of Tantra, but if we use it for enlightenment purposes, it can take us very, very far. So if we look at the 4 pathways of yoga, so this comes back to when we go to the next part, which is the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is probably the equivalent to the Bible in Hinduism, and it talks about the 4 pathways of yoga. And the 4 pathways of yoga are Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. So while we may draw upon all of these forms in our own practice, you'll find that your own personality is suited to one of them more than the other. So that's why there's 4 schools that were described, so that the yogic pathway could be accommodating for different personalities. So really, that's why I think I'm so passionate about it, because I know that yoga is good for everybody, and it offers us so much liberation, and there's a different way and a different pathway that we can all take to really get there. So if we look deeper at these 4 little pathways, we start with Bhakti Yoga, which is the practice of devotion and love. So it's really a union of the divine, whatever that means to you, that enlightenment, that aspect of pure being, through love and devoting ourselves to that higher power. So we do that through our actions. So everything we do becomes an act of this commitment, and it flows into all aspects of the devotee's life. So as an unconditional love for all living beings. This is really good for people who are emotionally minded. So if you know you're the sort of person who really loves to help others, like you really get a lot out of serving other people, like that fills your cup. It's not like you're giving because you're giving from a place that you think you should be doing it, but it's something that genuinely fills you up, like you feel like you're serving a greater good, then Bhakti Yoga is a pathway for you. If we look at Jnana Yoga, so this is the path of knowledge through, quiet contemplation and self-inquiry, the practice of meditation and prayer. It's great for the contemplative person, the people that maybe are very intellectual, and also enjoy their solitude, people who are deep thinkers. For me personally, Jnana Yoga is something that deeply resonates with me, and I definitely find the most connection to the yogic pathway through the Jnana Yoga path. Karma Yoga is next. So this is about honoring the divine through service and rightful deeds. So different to Bhakti Yoga. I should just check and make sure everything's good. I think it should be good. Sorry guys, I just want to make sure that you guys are still hearing me, because otherwise there's no point in doing that, is there? Should be right. Okay, cool. So Karma Yoga is about honoring the divine through service and rightful deeds. So it's liberation that's attained through the pathway of selfless giving, and is usually suited for those who are passionate activists who prefer action over quiet contemplation, for the people who are really like driven by a certain purpose in their life. That's why it's really important that we do speak up and not to quieten ourselves, because if you believe in something, then you can really elicit some great change within the world. All right, I think everybody is good. Yes. Oh, sorry guys, hang on. Type code into Matt. Okay. All good. Okay, perfect. Sorry guys, just wanted to make sure that we were still good. Okay, Raja Yoga is the next one. So this is King Yoga, and this is not for the faint-hearted. So this is a practice of incredible discipline and sometimes acts of great extremes, which one can be dedicated to in order to obtain their goal. So it gives you great control over your actions via detachment from limitations. So a great way to explain this one is those yogis that maybe you've heard of that do crazy things. Like there was one that tied up his limb. He was standing on one leg for years on end. Even when he slept, he didn't untie his other leg. And the reason he did it was because it was his commitment, his discipline, that if I do this, if I can persevere through having my leg and all this pain and all of this discomfort, then I can get through this limitation and attain that greater goal. So what, whatever that might be for you, whatever that connection means to you. So today, what we mostly practice, what you're probably all familiar with, is actually Hatha Yoga. When we come to Sanskrit as well, I just want to point out with Hatha Yoga, the TH doesn't actually make a th sound like we're used to in English. So the TH makes a th sound where you bring the tip of your tongue just behind the teeth. So if you're at home, maybe give it a go now. So it's Hatha Yoga. If you're familiar with Ayurveda as well, so if you know your 3 doshas, there's Kapha. So it isn't even Kapha, like PHA, which we often say. It's actually Kapha. So the H is silent and soft, but it does get in there. So anyway, let's move on. So there are many types that we see now, a lot of these modern practices such as Ashtanga, Bikram, Iyengar, they're all derived from Hatha Yoga. So what Hatha is a balance between the dualities within. So if we put it simply, it's about finding the equilibrium in the governing energetic forces of the body. So in the form of the sun, which is Ha, and then the moon is Ta. So Hatha. So early Hatha Yoga texts are the most comprehensive in terms of asana descriptions and inclusions. So therefore, that's why it's probably the best description for the yoga we predominantly see today. So in this picture, I just want to explain to you. So if we look, the 2 gods at the top there, one is Shakti and one is Shiva. So Shiva is consciousness. It's, the straight edges. It's the logical thinking, the analytical thinking brain. And then Shakti is about creation, movement, softness, feminine energy. Now notice how Shiva is blue, and he is on the left side of the brain. And then he's coming down into the opposite side of the face. So the right side of our brain is governed by the left side of the body. And then the left side of the brain, it governs the right side of the body. So when we think of Hatha, when we are focusing on that sun energy, it's everything through the right side. So if you've ever done Nadi Shodhana, which is the breathing, alternate nostril breathing, when we block off the left nostril and we breathe through the right, we're activating the left side of the brain, which is the Shiva side, the analytical side, the fiery side, the sun side. Then when we breathe through the left, it's the Shakti side, the feminine side, the lunar side. So that's what that picture there is demonstrating. How's everyone going so far? Keeping up? It's not too much, not too heavy? You can let me know if anything gets a bit too much. Alrighty, so we're going to move on now to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And it's just going to be a brief introduction today, just so you understand where all of these ideas have come from. And then we'll go further into it, just about how to know how to apply this in the daily life, which we'll do on Tuesday. So the Eightfold Path of Yoga is, they're the beginning of classical yoga. It's a book that's comprised of 4 chapters, or pada, that are made up of 196 sutras in total. So a sutra is a thread, and each thread is a very exact and powerful direction in its own right. So the entire collection of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras gives a very thorough description of the yogic path. So each little bit is like a little phrase. If you think of the Bible, how it's broken up into little verses and little phrases, it's very much the same. So, oh, cool. I'm so glad, Danny. Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So each of these little statements, it sounds like you're just reading one little book, and it flows one after the other. But you could literally sit with one of these sutras and read it over and over and take another meaning from it each time that you do. So this is something that I do in my own personal sadhana, is every day I'll open up the book, and wherever it happens to fall on, I'll read that sutra and then contemplate that a little bit for the day or just for my meditation. And it becomes very, very powerful in its own right. So hopefully that makes sense. But of course, we'll dive into that on Tuesday a little bit deeper. So we go straight now to understanding the Eightfold Path. We start with the yamas, and these are moral disciplines. So these are things that we do that are rightful. So it starts with ahimsa, which is non-violence, satya, which is truthfulness, asteya, which is non-stealing, pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal, dharana. Oh no, God, Denny, what are you doing? I'm way off key. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've lost the plot. Asteya is non-stealing. Brahmacharya is abstinence or correct use of energy. So traditionally, it is referring to not using your sexual energy, so being abstaining from sex. But it can also be your energy on a day-to-day basis. Aparigraha is non-greed. So now we come to the niyamas, which is self-discipline, self-observances. So it starts with socha, which is cleanliness or purity. That's of the body, the mind, where you live. Santosha is contentment. This is an interesting one, and we'll dive into that on Tuesday, because this can be confused with spiritual bypassing, and I think there's something really important that needs to be said about that. Tapas is one of my favorites. I know you guys have probably heard me talk about it about a million times. So tapas is self-discipline. Svadhyaya is self-study. And Ishvara Pranidhana is surrender. Then we get to the other ones. So asana is your physical postures. Pranayama is breath control. Pratyahara is withdrawal of your senses. Dharana is concentration. Dhyana is absorption. And samadhi is the final stage. It's liberation, enlightenment, oneness. So all of these 8 little limbs, well, not little limbs, they're quite vast, but all of these limbs are things that we need to, as proper yogis, is bring into our day-to-day. They're things that can be spoken about on their own for an hour each. They're very, very in-depth, and there's a lot more to them. So just like to point out of 8, all of those 8, and if you include all those individual niyamas and yamas, you'll realize that asana, the postures, is actually such a small part of the yogic pathway. And you know for yourselves, when you've practiced yoga, the asana, you feel great afterwards, don't you? You feel a bit of that connection. It's a bit of a buzz, a bit of a high, and then slowly, as we integrate back into the real world, and then somebody pisses us off, then we sort of just come back out of it again until the next yoga class. But the idea is, if we take all these yamas, niyamas, everything, the meditation, the pranayama, then eventually we get to that step 8, the samadhi, that liberation in our day-to-day lives. Things start to not annoy you as much. You have more self-mastery, more self-control. And on my own path, that's why yoga, it did start with the postures, and then it became deeper and deeper. Then when I was at the ashram, we would have satsang, as I mentioned earlier. So having these nourishing conversations each Friday, we would talk about all of these things in depth, and then they became backbones of my life, and they've pulled me out of some really, really dark places. And I want you guys to be able to create that in your lives too. I want you to be able to take more than the asana and really create a life that supports you so deeply, so you can feel that liberation, that enlightenment. You might even have little peaks of samadhi in a meditation, with good practice. You feel that bliss, that oneness. It's totally obtainable. And I know it sounds so hippie-ish in this day and age, but I think everyone that's here anyway knows that there's some truth behind it anyway. But we'll get onto that a little bit more on Tuesday. So let's just dive into now the 3 major ones, the things that we know most about, that we can really start as a strong foundation. So as I spoke about earlier, mine started with a daily practice of asana, some breathing techniques as well, and a bit of meditation, and it grew and grew even deeper. So I want to go into these a little bit deeper for you today, just so you can get a really good understanding of where, what it means, why we do these things, and how we can use it. So asana, I know you already know, but it is the postures that we are most commonly familiar with when we think of yoga. So the purpose of asana is to prepare your body for meditation. So obviously it is about finding that comfort within our being, to keep our energy flowing the way it should. And, when we end up doing handstands and things like that, it's really about having that self-mastery over the physical body in order to gain the mastery over the mind. So asana really aims to increase the flexibility by removing tension, creating strength to support our joints, and to feel total mind-body connection. So the mind and the body are separate entities, but they are also deeply connected. What happens to one also happens to the other. So therefore, whatever the body feels, the mind does too, and vice versa. Our body is ultimately the temple for our soul. So therefore, it needs to be treated with care and moved regularly to ensure that we don't create energetic stagnation. So asana helps us to increase and direct pranic flow. So let's practice. I'm going to see if I can just quickly stop screen sharing. I actually have no idea how to do this. Okay, can you guys see my face now? We're just going to do just a quick little bit of asana just to get into our body, so that as we move on, we learn about prana, then we're going to do some pranayama, and then we'll do some meditation as well. So how are we going for time? Okay, cool. So let's just do a few little twists and a few little opening for our chest as well. So just start by taking a deep breath in, raise your arms high. Bring your palms together just over the head in prayer position. Now relax your shoulders down away from the ears. We want to create that space there. Take a deep breath in, breathe in all the way to your heart. Hold it at the top. And as you exhale, just move your palms down beside the body. So we want to move with the breath. Let's do it again. Inhale, reach it up. Palms touch. Relax your shoulders. Hold your breath in. Exhale, melt it down. Let's do it one more time. Inhale, really reach it up. As though you're drawing a big circle around the body. Draw your breath in, relax your shoulders down, keep driving your palms up, hold the breath at the top. Exhale, float the palms down. Let's bring our arms out at shoulder height. We'll take Garudasana arms here. So bring your right arm underneath your left, bend at your elbows, twist that right palm towards the inside of your left palm. Draw your elbows down. So start to take a deep breath in now, just noticing where you might feel sensation and just focus your awareness there. Draw your breath in. Exhale, relax the shoulders, relax your elbows. Take an inhale, draw your elbows up. Exhale. One more draw of the breath in. Exhale, relax it down. Beautiful work. Inhale, open up through the arms. Let's take it to the opposite side. So this time, right arm on top of the left. Bend. Twist this time, bringing your left palm to the inside. Drop the elbows down. Open through your shoulders. Really feel it there in the shoulder blades as you draw your breath in. Exhale, soften into your sensation. See if you can relax the elbows down. Inhale. Exhale. Deepen down. Inhale, draw the elbows high. Breathe it in. Exhale, relax it down. One more draw of the breath in. Beautiful work. As you exhale, open up through the arms. Open your chest nice and wide. Really draw the arms back. Circle the palms behind you. Make one big fist as you interlock your palms. Kiss the shoulder blades together. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, just forward fold. Round your back as much as you need to. Just bring your palms overhead. Opening through the shoulders here. And inhale, come back to center. Let's just do one more for the neck. So drop your left ear down to your left shoulder. Reach your right palm away from your body, just hovering it above the ground. Inhale. Relax that shoulder down as you exhale. Inhale back to center, dropping opposite ear. Inhale, push your palm away. This time left palm reaching towards the ground, but your fingertips are flexed up towards your wrist. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, relax that left shoulder down. Alrighty, inhale, just come back to center. So obviously, you know, asana doesn't have to be something crazy. It's literally just about checking in with our body. And that's something that we can do daily. You know, if you're working at your computer and you're starting to feel a bit of that tension, it's about integrating that mind-body connection by taking a few moments to just check in, to get rid of a bit of that tension, to help you to breathe deeper, to check in with your body. And then that's how it becomes a little bit more of a sadhana. It becomes more of a pathway. It's not just that 1 hour that you do maybe once, twice a week. It becomes something that is with you every single moment. So let's go back to that screen share. If I can do this. All right. I'm getting there, guys. It'll be better next time, I swear. Alrighty, so that's asana. And like I said, it's really about directing the pranic flow. So that brings us to pranayama. So what is pranayama? Yes, it is about that breath control, but it's really ultimately about controlling the prana, the life force within us. So prana is the universal energy that exists within everything. So even inanimate objects, everything that you have within your home has prana, but in different levels. So it's the energy that connects our physical being to the other energetic layers of our being. So they're called the koshas, and we'll go more into that in the future. So it's the life-giving force that exists in the air we breathe, but it isn't the air itself. So just think about that for a moment. So I think somewhere in the back of our minds or within our hearts even, we can sort of understand it from that point of view. And I suppose that's why when we look at the Vedas or we consider the Vedas, how I said a lot of it's very metaphoric, it's because some of this stuff we just can't explain. We can try, I can give you these words here today, but really it's something we experience. We feel it. It's something that we know. I think we're born knowing these things already. So it can be considered a high vibrational essence that is pure and life-sustaining. So we get it from fresh foods, we get it from nourishing conversation, so satsang, there's that word again. When we sing good songs, when we meditate, when we exercise with asana and so on, things like that. It's readily available in the air we breathe, which is what I said. So that's why we practice pranayama. It helps us to increase the pranic flow in the body. So the prana is that life-giving force, and then the yama is the discipline. So remember yama from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, that discipline or that control. So yeah, so yamas, when we were referring back to that in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, I did say moral disciplines, but ultimately, yeah, it's ultimately just discipline or control. So pranayama is a life-giving force in control. Pranayama gives us control within our being so that we can create a healthful temple to reside in. Excuse me. So there's many ways that we can practice breath control depending on what we want to achieve. So pranayama focuses on finding a balance over the three main energies of our being. So Pingala, the active solar form, Ida, the more subdued lunar form. So if we think back to that Shakti and Shiva drawing from earlier. And then the third one is the central channel, so the Sushumna, which is the same. So these are the same principles as we discussed in Hatha Yoga. So here's a picture for you here. So Pingala Nadi is that when we're breathing through the right nostril. Ida Nadi is through the left nostril. And then the Sushumna, the one that runs through all the main chakras from the base all the way to the crown. It goes up and down, up and down. That's basically our Kundalini energy. So it resides within our tailbone space. And that's why we want to do asana so that we don't jam and constrict this energy flow. We really want to keep this activation through all of our energy centers. But we want to keep that balanced energy. So that's why the Pingala Nadi and Ida Nadi, they circle or like a serpentine structure. They go through the spine, up, through the crown, and then down again. So they weave up and down. So this is in constant movement. So really pranayama is the bridge that connects our body to our mind. So let's practice something right now. So another pranayama, if my thing's going to let me do it. Okay. So for this pranayama, we might do Nadi Shodhana. So Nadi Shodhana, sorry. So just close down your eyes, and I just want you to bring your thumb and just rest that on the outside edge of your right nostril. So just take a deep breath in through your left. As you exhale, block off the left and exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Block it off. Exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Exhale through the right. Inhale right. Exhale left. We change after each exhale. So inhale left. We change to exhale through the right. Let your inhale come naturally. Just remember to swap on the exhale, so breathing through the opposite nostril. Just stay with that. So in through the left, out through the right. Just keep going in your own rhythm. So keep your eyes closed if you feel comfortable doing so. Just allow your body to soften. And see if you can streamline the breath. Each breath you draw in is a little bit longer, a little bit softer than the one before it. It's not about forcing the breath. It's about softening, streamlining. Like a silk thread drawing through your nose. Going deeper with each exhale, drawing the prana in your body. See if you can notice the prana as you breathe it in. It's not something you intellectualize, it's something you feel. Can you feel the prana as you breathe in? Exhale to let it go. Keep alternating left and right. Just take 3 more rounds here. So 3 more inhales, 3 more exhales. Be in no rush. Give yourself this moment. Cultivate prana. Control the flow, Ida and Pingala. Balance along Shushumna. One more inhale. One more exhale. And just bring your palms back down. Just notice the difference now between breathing through one nostril, now breathing through both. So how does everyone feel? You can open your eyes now. Just notice how the body feels, how your mind feels. Just noticing how you can take this moment to control that prana flow by balancing the left and the right, to find that weaving between the two, to balance your mind, to balancing the two forces of the mind. So I'd love to know how you all feel. Definitely share below if you feel like sharing. And then we'll go on to the next section in the meantime, which is, you guessed it, meditation. All right, so meditation is, got to find my notes. Oh, here we go. Okay, cool. So meditation is, it's a state of concentration, which is dharana, if we think back to the Eightfold Path, and absorption, which is dhyana. So when we look at that Eightfold Path, you'll have noticed that not one of them actually said meditation, like it's its own thing. Meditation really comes in 2 parts. So yeah, dharana is the concentration part, and dhyana is when we get absorbed into that state of concentration. So it's a discipline practice that we use to purify the mind, and it does take practice to achieve. So, you know, we often get that huge influx of thoughts, and that's a part of the process. It's totally a part of the process. So that's about, we got to get through that that wave of thoughts to find the concentration that's at on that point. So the way that we can find concentration is we can use a few different things. There's a few methods that we can use in order to achieve meditation. So we can focus on a deity. That's what a lot of Hindus do. So you can focus on their image or their qualities. You can use an image such as a mandala or a tanka. So, where you see those beautiful symmetrical patterns. The idea is to focus within that, and then you sort of just, you let that consume you. And then eventually you start to find yourself being absorbed into that state. I know for me, I remember as a kid, I would stare at like the patterns that the sun made on the floor in front of me. And because you don't have that huge, crazy influx of thoughts and the anxiety that we unfortunately sometimes get as adults, it was very easy for me to find that connection, that concentration, to the point where I got absorbed by it. It wasn't, I wasn't even identifying that pattern I saw on the floor was the sun coming through anymore. It was really this, it started to transform, and it was its own thing. I was just totally absorbed by it. And I don't know if anybody's experienced that as well. Maybe share something below, share when you, or just say, yeah, I have, I've experienced that before. That's the idea that we're getting to. But so we've got to find a place to concentrate first, and then when we get absorbed by it, that's when we get to that second part of meditation. It really is the two parts. So we can, if that's not for you, you can use mantra, you can use your breath concentration, you can use walking meditation or singing like kirtan, somatic meditation where we just feel into the body, or you can use imagination. So, guided meditations where you might picture yourself walking through a forest or something like that. So that, like I was saying, the influx of the thoughts that we get at the beginning of the meditation is a necessary step. So when we learn to sit with it for long enough, we start to understand how the thoughts really need to arise and bubble to the surface before they can dissipate. So we can't really suppress them. They need to come up so that we can purify the mind. So when you if you sat down for meditation and your thoughts are just churning and you get frustrated, just know that that's part of the process. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you're starting the practice. You're purifying the mind. And it's challenging. It's about learning to just sit with that. And then eventually you start to understand the nature of the mind. And you start to learn how to lean into that discomfort. And then you start to find the ability to take a step back, and you become the observer of the thoughts rather than partaking in them. And then as your practice deepens with time, it gets easier and easier to get to that point. And then you eventually reach a point where you're totally absorbed in that internal space or within that object of your meditation. So if you can picture that pattern, that sun pattern on the ground, or whatever it might be for you that you remember, and just really being absorbed into that. It's like you fuse with that. You might even stop breathing, to be honest, when you find that state of meditation, because your body begins to cultivate more prana and reside within this. So I know personally for me, I don't know how long I went. There's been some times where I've been in that state of meditation and it's been quite a while, and then I snap out of it, and then I realize, I haven't actually been breathing for a while. And that's because of that prana control that I've been able to sustain myself of, because I've been so absorbed in that moment that the prana is able to reside within my being much easier because the mind is pure. So my energy isn't being wasted on trying to keep or retain the prana. It's really just cleared out the space so that the prana can expand and reside within. So let's practice a meditation here. We're just going to do a really quick one, just something that allows us to, we can use this just to ground down into the body at any time that we might like. So just find yourself a nice comfortable position. Traditionally, we do sit up straight for meditation because the idea of having the spine erect actually tells the mind that we're here for a concentration, we're here for an action. When we lie down, we have the tendency to just want to go to sleep instead. But this is very different to sleeping. It is still relaxing, but it's a state of concentration. So make yourself comfortable. And just start to relax your shoulders down, away from your ears. Just shut down the eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. Or if you feel more comfortable, you might even like to slightly open the eyelids and just focus on the very tip of your nose. Soften through your belly. And soften through your jaw. Just bring a gap between your top and bottom teeth. Just start to notice your breath. You don't need to change it in any way. You simply just notice it exactly as it is. Notice how each exhale takes you a little bit deeper. You draw your breath in. Exhale, you go deeper. Focusing on your breath, nothing else but the breath. Each time the mind wanders, you come back to your breath. Doesn't matter how many times the mind goes away, you just come back to your breath with compassion, with patience, with self-love. Each exhale takes you deeper. It's just you and your breath. You, your breath. As you inhale, mentally repeat, so. As you exhale, hum. So, hum. So on the inhale, hum on the exhale. So, hum. So, hum. So, hum. Keep coming back to so, hum. Start to notice how your body feels, the energy of your body. Just noticing your breath as it makes your body expand on the inhale and gently fall on the exhale. Just softly open your eyes when you're ready. How does everyone feel? Love you to let me know in the comments. And just keep this feeling with you now. And just understand whether you got to a place or you didn't. It's okay, it's all part of the process. But what we really wanted to achieve there was have a point of focus, a place where we get absorbed with our breath. So we use our that mantra, so hum, to really stay focused on the breath, to stay within ourselves. The Soham is a Sanskrit, a bija mantra, a Sanskrit term. It's not a bija mantra, sorry. It's a Sanskrit mantra that means I am that I am. So whatever that means to you, it's about having contemplation within that or on that. And with time, as you start to develop a bit more of a practice with this Soham, using this mantra, even if it means nothing to you at the start, it starts to make sense as you go on. So all of what we are talking about today is about building a sadhana. So a sadhana is a daily practice, a discipline that's dedicated to developing yourself. So sadhana is ultimately the Eightfold Path is meant to be your daily practice. It's beyond the asana. It's a moment-to-moment thing. But really a great place to start is creating yourself something that you can dedicate to, whether it's a 5-minute, 10-minute, 30-minute, an hour, whatever practice that you can dedicate to really establish some sort of connection to grow from. Because if you stick to something, the same thing every single day, then you build that self-discipline and then it starts to evolve. That meditation that you couldn't do yesterday starts to become a bit easier tomorrow, then easier until something you are able to master, and it becomes mastery of self. So it could be absolutely anything that you feel that gives you connection, meaning, and the alignment that you crave. So traditionally, a sadhana is recommended first thing in the morning during the ambrosial hours when connection to the divine is said to be at its strongest. So it's the point where the infrared rays reach the earth before the sunlight does. So if you know anything about infrared, the long waves of infrared are known to carry information. So just like our TV remotes. So it's said that the rays that come over and hit the earth first are bringing wisdom from afar, wisdom that we can tap into about the future, about maybe what the day holds ahead, or things that have occurred. So the hours do vary throughout the year, depending when the sun rises, but usually, it's about 1 to 2 hours before sunrise. So, waking around 4 to 6 a.m. is really powerful time for sadhana. You can also do sadhana in the afternoon, so sort of 4:30, 6:30, same sort of thing, where you're getting the infrared rays. But really, it's in reverse. So rather than the infrared rays hitting you first, it's sort of you start your sadhana and then they come over at the end. So whatever we do, when it comes to sadhana though, it should always be conducted with an intention or a sankalpa that helps you to cultivate that quality that you wish to achieve. So we'll go a little bit more about that in part 2 on Tuesday. So what are we going to do in part 2? We're going to start with a guided pranayama and a little meditation just to really set the tone. This is really going to be the theme moving forward, is we're going to practice some yoga. Now that you understand it a bit more, we're going to start practicing it so that we can make a bit more of a habit of it. Maybe it becomes something that you can start drawing upon a bit more in your day-to-day life. We're going to dive deeper into those yoga sutras as well. So really understanding what all of those things mean and how we can apply them practically in a modern setting in our daily lives. So we're going to learn how to create a sadhana as well. So I'm going to give you step-by-step guidance so that you can make something that you're going to stick to, that's easy, and that you can cultivate, that you're going to adhere to quite easily. We're going to discover the monthly challenge as well. So each month we're really going to allow the topic to be integrated into our daily lives. So it's one thing to just sit through this hour of learning and then go, cool, I'm inspired for a bit, but then, it fizzles out. So we really want to embed this in our lives so that we can create this strong foundation, so that we can find this liberation that we keep talking about. And it is possible. Obviously, it's not going to be this enlightenment, this Buddha sitting under the tree thing, or it might be, but it's definitely going to give you a strong backbone for feeling more in control of your day-to-day lives. And then you get to ask all of the burning questions that might come up, within the next few days, or maybe you've had some time to think and something's popped up for tonight. So what do you get as part of the Life Collective if you're not already signed up? So we get a weekly live yoga class, unless we're doing a masterclass. So 1 monthly masterclass on a new topic, and it'll be on mind, body, soul health. We'll dive into topics from psychology, Reiki. I'll have some special guests on board. That's the plan anyway. And we'll dive into, more depth of yoga. So really using pranayama, really understanding the energy of the body and how to utilize that. And you really get lots of resources, lots of tools. This isn't just about me just telling you stuff. You're going to get tools that you can use, resources that you can call upon, the monthly challenges, as I said. You get community, so like-minded people. This is your chance to have satsang, you know, daily, have nourishing conversation with like-minded people, really bouncing off one another. You've got the freedom and to do this whenever you want to, you know. You don't have to join in tonight, for instance. You can watch the replay, which will always be there for you. You get ongoing professional support from me as well. So if you ever need any questions answered or something's come up, you're always welcome to have a chat with me. And at the moment, it's only $30 a month. And I think that's just, like, that's amazing. You're getting, you know, 3 yoga classes plus some really enriching topics, some tools, community, all of that goodness for $30. And if you do sign up, you get grandfathered in at this price. So imagine if down the track, this thing grows and expands and we're getting some really special guests on. Other people might be paying, who knows, $50, $60 by then, and you'll still be getting it for $30. Even if you decide to pull out 1 month and then you want to rejoin in, you know, 3 months later, you'll still get it for the $30. So upcoming topics, you know, this is very much open. Like if you guys say, I really want to learn about this, or this has come up for me, you know, since applying this sadhana, I really want to dive deeper. You know, you've got that freedom to let me know. This is community. I'll help you grow wherever I can, and then we'll call on other professionals to help expand wherever we need to. So I'm really excited. I think that we should definitely dive into things like breath work for everyday healing. So really using the breath on a moment-to-moment basis so that we can feel that self-mastery daily. Ayurvedic yoga, so learning about the doshas, learning about how we can identify imbalances and treat them, exploring the energetic bodies, as I was saying, so the energetic bodies, the koshas, and the different layers that make us who we are. And then crystal healing. I mean, I've got so many ideas. Really, the world is our oyster and we can come up with absolutely anything that we want to. So that just about draws it to an end. I just want to see what you guys have all said. Feeling amazing. Felt good to control the breathing. It really does. Breath is everything when it comes to self-mastery. So the asana is great. It helps us get the tension out of the body. But the pranayama is that bridge between body and mind. So we'll get into that a little bit more maybe on Tuesday. Feeling balanced and grateful. Amazing, Danny. That's awesome to hear. All right. Well, does anyone have any questions? Please feel free to ask anything that's come up or have a think. Let me know if you've got anything that you want to talk about, or if you've got questions about your membership, or if you want to know how to join. Just let me know. Otherwise, have a beautiful, beautiful night. I love you all. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon. Alrighty. Namaste.